I have no special talents. I am only passionately curious. So said the man depicted here, and I dare say you know who he is. What if I were to ask you, is this man currently alive, or is he dead? How many say alive? Anyone? How many say dead? You mostly say dead. Well, I would argue that either answer could be correct depending on how you look at it. Albert Einstein's life ended in 1955, of course, but his discoveries are still very much alive in terms of their impact. For example, whenever you use a navigation app that relies on satellites to determine your location, you ought to thank Einstein for having first explained the physics that allows you to do this. Or take this current magazine cover that highlights everyday relativity. It says, Einstein's theory of space-time influences chemistry all around us. Today I will share some thoughts about Einstein, the passionately curious man who was remarkable not only as a scientific genius, but as one who felt the spiritual dimension of humanity's wish to explore the universe. Let's first make note of the word theory, which I've circled on this slide. I will use this word only in its scientific sense, like in Einstein's theory of space-time. By contrast, as you know, in the mass media, the word theory usually refers to speculation, hoaxes, and disinformation. A scientific theory is not that. Rather, it is an explanation that can and must be tested for consistency with the facts of nature. Upon its confirmation, a theory is accepted as being valid scientifically for the time being, while remaining open to future improvements. With that definition, let's get to the main topic. I call this talk the mind of a beginner. Awakening the mind of a beginner is essential if one is to follow the Buddhist path. It is the mind that Shakyamuni perfected when he became a Buddha, as represented in this powerful image. The beginner's mind may not contain a lot of knowledge, but it has a broad view of what is possible. It sees the world as ever expanding. Such a mind seeks meaning in all things, whether they appear to be good or bad. On the other hand, the mind of an expert contains some knowledge, but its view of what is possible is narrow and is constrained by what is already known. With the expert's mind, the Buddhist path is very hard to encounter. By way of illustration, let's return to Albert Einstein, whose scientific work made big news back in 2016. 100 years earlier, he published a remarkable result based on his newly developed theory of gravity. The theory implied that the universe is full of gravitational waves, ripples in space illustrated in this artist's conception. The idea was not entirely new, but Einstein was the first to do the difficult math correctly. But lacking any physical evidence for such waves, he was reluctant to conclude that they actually existed. However, in 2016, it was announced that an experiment had confirmed Einstein's prediction in spectacular fashion. The headline reads, "Einstein was right. We can hear the universe." For the first time, there was direct detection of gravitational waves produced by the merging of two black holes in a distant galaxy. The experimental result was a cause for rejoicing among physicists. Most of them had felt for a long time that Einstein's result was correct, and thus they were not surprised to see it confirmed. But why the great fanfare over the announcement? One reason is that the measurement in 2016 was extremely difficult. It was achieved at considerable expense after 50 years of work by thousands of highly talented people. There was a justifiable feeling of accomplishment, of having met a supreme challenge. There was also the expectation that future observations of gravitational waves would be even more revealing. The second reason for celebrating has to do with the nature of Einstein's theory of gravity, which changed humanity's understanding of the universe. Known as the general theory of relativity, it describes much more than gravitational waves. Several of the theory's predictions were confirmed by observations during Einstein's lifetime, which made him a scientific saint. Among these was the astounding fact that the universe is expanding. We take this kind of for granted today. It's been around for a long time, but at the time it was a revolutionary idea. Humans could never again look at the world in the way they had done before Einstein came along. And still today, the discovery imparts a sense of wonder, a feeling of amazement that humans can touch something eternal. It's a feeling that transcends our individual complaints and worries, a feeling that reconnects us with the beginner's mind that we possessed as children. All scientific findings do this to at least a small degree, if only for the few people directly involved, but it's rare that a discovery alters the whole picture of the universe. As far as gravity is concerned, the only person to have made a discovery comparable to Einstein's was Isaac Newton. The everyday force of gravity does not surprise us, but what Newton accomplished 350 years ago was astonishing. He proved that the force of gravity that causes an apple to fall also governs the motion of the sun, the earth, the moon, and the planets. Celestial motions are not controlled by inscrutable powers, as humans of earlier eras had believed. Rather, it is the everyday force of gravity that governs the universe, and Newton was the first person to demonstrate this convincingly. As a poet wrote at the time, "Nature and nature's laws lay hid in night. God said, 'Let Newton be,' and all was light." Even so, Newton realized that his theory was incomplete. He explained the effects of gravity, but not its cause. He said this: "I have not yet been able to discover the cause of these properties of gravity from phenomena, and I contrive no hypotheses about it. It is enough that gravity does really exist and acts according to the laws I have explained, and that it abundantly serves to account for all the motions of celestial bodies." Einstein's contribution was to take a fresh look at the problem and to probe at a deeper level than was possible in Newton's day. Einstein explained the origin or cause of gravity, and in doing so, he completed what Newton had begun. Here's a statement by Einstein that describes his way of working. "However we try to explain the laws of nature, in no case will the theoretical treatment be forever appropriate. Newton's theory was eventually proved to be wanting, and mine has taken its place. But the day will come when my theory, too, will have to yield to another one, for reasons which at present we do not yet surmise. I believe that this process of deepening the theory has no limits." I'll say that last sentence again. I believe that this process of deepening the theory has no limits. To follow the Buddhist path, or to make a great discovery in science, one must have the mind of a beginner. Such a mind has a broad view of what is possible and sees everything in life as offering an opportunity for learning. It believes that the process of deepening our understanding has no limits. The beginner's mind is not attached to any fixed ideas or concepts. On the other hand, the expert's mind sees life as being limited to what is already known and understood. It is attached to fixed views and preconceptions and to a comfortable view of the self. At one time or another, each of us sees the world with the eyes of a beginner. And at one time or another, each of us sees the world with the eyes of an expert. Which view do we adopt when it comes to the Buddha Dharma? Which view will it be when we look for the true self? Is it deepening endlessly or remaining in our comfort zone? Einstein was, of course, highly knowledgeable, but his beginner's mind led him to tackle problems that the expert's mind would have ignored, and so he changed our understanding of the universe. For the rest of his life, the beginner's mind led him to ask questions that ran against the grain of contemporary physics, and thus his scientific quest became a lonely one. A genuine truth seeker does not need a lot of company. In distinctive fashion, Einstein cited a religious dimension to his truth-seeking. Everyone who is seriously involved in the pursuit of science becomes convinced that a spirit is manifested in the laws of the universe, a spirit vastly superior to that of man, and one in the face of which we, with our modest powers, must feel humble. In this way, the pursuit of science leads to a religious feeling of a special sort, which is indeed quite different from the religiosity of someone more naive. Einstein rejected the notion that this universal spirit involves itself in any way with human affairs. One of his friends described him this way: he was the freest man I have ever known. Einstein was liberated by becoming a truth seeker, by perfecting his beginner's mind. This is identical to what is meant by liberation in Shin Buddhism: to become a truth seeker and to perfect the mind of a beginner. Some years ago, I gave a tour of the Hondo to a group of true beginners who impressed me. They asked many questions and wanted to understand everything that I was saying to them. They showed a remarkable level of interest in the objects I pointed out on the Naijin. What group was this? Not to keep you in suspense, it was a pack of 9-year-old Cub Scouts. Later, they sent me artistic impressions like this one. That's me on the right demonstrating Oshoko. Each of the 9-year-olds entered the Hondo with passionate curiosity, like Einstein. As teenagers and adults, do we come to the temple with such an open mind? Unfortunately, it is very difficult for us to do so. In growing beyond childhood, we lose access to the natural spontaneity that we once possessed. As we mature through adolescence and into adulthood, the mind of the beginner is replaced by the mind of the expert. We think, there's nothing I can learn from Buddhism. Among us grown-ups, this secularized mind is quite prevalent. However, the time may come when we encounter something that our minds cannot grasp. We may be compelled to face questions that go beyond our adult expertise. Questions like, why is there suffering? What is death? What am I? the expert's mind turns away from such questions. On the other hand, we might be prompted to reawaken the beginner's mind, to see everything in life as offering an opportunity for learning, to realize that the process of deepening self-awareness has no limits. The basis of Shin Buddhism is to rediscover the beginner's mind and to deepen it endlessly. The beginner's mind is expressed in the verses of San Butsuge, which we chanted this morning. Here's a portion of it in translation. Even though there are zillions of Buddhas and great sages, as many as the sand grains of the Ganges, I will visit all of them and study under them. Nothing is greater than seeking the way, continuously advancing and never retreating. May we awaken the mind that sees many possibilities, that finds meaning in all things. Today's message is from Let This Be Known, Finding the Shin Buddhist Path, published by the Buddhist Education Center. It's available on Amazon or for purchase here at the temple. If you would like a copy, please see me afterwards. Thank you very much for listening. Namo Amida Butsu. Namandats. Namandats.